stories.
It wasn't, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
No.
So in all seriousness, like right now, we're totally prepared for this 1,000-mile race. We are going out into the wilderness with 16 dogs. I am so excited to go. I'm ready. I'm fit. My dogs are fit. We have all the dog food we need. We have all our gear. We couldn't be any more ready, could we?
We've
No.
been training all winter and fall.
25 years we've been training for this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're ready. There's not a lot of times people always ask me, do you get scared out there? No, I don't get scared out there. Do you get worried about stuff or anything? Not any more than Kenny sitting in his office like he did. I mean, I really, okay, relax.
All right, that was great.
When's the ship getting here? I mean, no. I mean, we really train for what we do. We don't take a lot of risks. We really don't. Like people think, ooh, Iditarod mushroom crap, you're crazy. Well, we're really not. We're not risk takers. We actually are. We train to do what we do. We're really careful with our dogs and ourselves and our gear. And actually, Alan's even, since this course is so icy this year, supposedly, he's actually put.
Well, compared to 2 years ago when we had 0 snow going through the range, we had no way of stopping going down some of these hills. We actually, had GPSs and they register, the fastest time you go. We at one point went 31.7 miles an hour. This is down trees going through like this is what the GPS
It was free
said.
falling.
It was, that, oh, I forgot.
It wasn't. So this year, actually, Alan's even put like tire chains on our runners. But you don't want the tire chains on all the time because they'll slow you down. So he's actually got this system where we have pulleys where you can put 1 chain down or 2 chains down or hip-hop them back up.
Or you just pull them up and not use them.
So that's our new, so we're prepared. Like all these crazy stories and everything, you hear about stuff and you're like, well, anything can happen, but it's not a fearful kind of thing.
We try to put ourselves through most situations we may go through, out on the trail, and we have. So normally we can get through it, and hopefully we can get through it.
But there was one time when Mother Nature smacked the crap out of me. And it was 2 years ago in the 2014 Iditarod, and I was pretty much neck and neck. I got to the last checkpoint on the Iditarod, which is 77 miles from the finish line, and I was in second place by 1 hour. And the gentleman who was in front of me, rather cocky individual, and he was pretty confident. Sorry, confident.
Keep those words, man.
Sorry. And pretty much the media and everyone except Raz Lines / Matson knew this guy was going to win, and I knew I could catch him. 77 miles from the finish line, like I was going to go for it. So I didn't even see him leave the checkpoint. I kind of was looking the other way, like, yeah, whatever. And when I left the checkpoint for the last run to the finish line, the weather was okay. I mean, it had been pretty breezy out on the western coast, like 30 miles an hour or so for a few days. But I had wind jackets, I had my fur ruff, I had everything that I needed to endure anything that I thought was going to be pretty bad out there. I didn't, who's got the cell phone beeping?
I'm trying to turn it off. It's Ray Crow.
And so I started gunning for it. I mean, I thought, 77 miles, I can catch this guy, I can do it, I can get first place, this is crazy, I'm really going to be able to do it this year. And I started ski poling and pedaling and running up every hill and singing that stupid Kelly Clarkson song, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," or whatever. And I was going crazy, and I really thought I was going to catch him. And about 40 miles from the finish line is when you actually come up over this last big mountain, come down, and you see the ocean. And most of the time, the ocean is frozen. And so you come up over, and this time I looked down and it was black, like it was open water, and I was like,
And all that wind
had
had
blown
blown all the ice
away. And most of the time there's ice there, so you're kind of like, because you have to travel from that moment on. You go down this big hill, and then you go up the coast for 40 miles right along the coast. The snow machine trail, dog trail, is actually sometimes 20 feet from the coast, sometimes 50 feet from the coast,
Yeah,
sometimes a little in and out. So you always know the water's right there, which is good if you lose your way, then you always follow the edge of the water. It's really bad when it's dark and the wind starts blowing like crazy, you and
60
your
miles an hour.
team towards the water. And pretty much for the next 10 miles, it was the most incredibly physically challenging thing I've ever done or I ever thought I could do. I am a very strong person, and my dogs were very dedicated to me, and there were a couple moments when I thought, I can't dig any deeper if I'm asked to, and I always did. And it shocks me to today that I was able to make it the 10 miles that I did through that, where the wind was actually blowing us so hard that it would all the snow had gotten blown off of the trail, so it was just pure ice and pieces of driftwood. And the wind would blow us so hard, it would smack us right into the driftwood, and then all your dog lines would get tangled in the driftwood. But you couldn't get off your sled without tying yourself to your sled because you'd get blown away, and then you couldn't undo you were afraid you'd get blown away. So I don't even know how to describe the moments of trying to make it to where I knew that safety checkpoint was.
They call it safety for a reason.
Yeah. And when I got there, it was, I don't know, the wee hours or something. And I pulled into that checkpoint, and they always, as Alan tell you, they always have a notebook that says sign in here.
So you can tell, who got there before you and how long they've been there and if they left and all that good stuff.
So they put the little thing in front of me, and they're like, sign in, and the guy who'd been in front of me, he wasn't there. I was like, that was my first question. Where is he? And they're like, oh, he's camping. And I was like, oh no, he's not camping. I mean, number one, that meant I passed him.
She thought he could be dead.
I was 100% sure that he and his dog team had been blown into the ocean. 100% sure. And they were like, no, he's. And so it was a very tight moment for me when I thought he and his dogs were gone. And this cabin is kind of set up. So I brought all my dogs behind the cabin, out of the wind, and I put them in a pile, because when puppies are young, they get in these puppy piles to protect themselves. And so I took my dog team out of the line, and I just walked them over, and they all got in this pile together, and they put their heads down like this. They were scared, and I was worried about Chica, Waylon, and Pud the most. And one of them had been running like it really hurt its foot bad. And I couldn't stop out there to check, because if I stopped, we wouldn't make it. And I thought, oh my God, I broke this dog's leg. And the veterinarian crew was there, and the vet walked over and he yelled at me, hey, Alan, you know that their booties are full of snow? And I was like, oh my God, no. It was blowing so hard that the snow crystals went through these booties, got stuck inside the booties, and were big balls of snow. And the dogs were running on the balls of snow. So all my dogs were fine, I just hadn't been able to take their look at them. So when I got into safety, there was no physical way I could leave. The trail headed
20 miles from the finish, 22 miles from the finish.
And I remember this volunteer coming out and going, it's your race to win. And I was like, it's my life, lady. I was like, so I put all my dogs in a pile, and then we send all these food drops out, which is in our supplies, and they're in these burlap sacks, and my dogs were still getting buffeted by the wind, and the ones on the top were getting really stressed out. So I built an igloo around them with everyone's food drop bags, all 75 mushers that are in the race, all their food drop bags were around my dogs, and the vet actually helped me do that. And then finally I realized I was so done that if I didn't like sit down somewhere, it would be bad. So I went to the front of the cabin and I tried to walk in the cabin, and the wind blew so hard it actually blew my feet out from under me, and I had to crawl hands and knees into the cabin. And I got in, and there was no heat and there was no electricity because the generator had been knocked out from the wind. And there was a group of snow machiners that were stuck there because they couldn't go. And anyway, I ended up sitting there, and to this day,
2.5 hours.
it was the best decision of my life, because it could have been the last decision of my life. And eventually the dog teams, Dallas, who came through, and whether the storm was as bad as it was or not, it's irrelevant. He passed me, and at that moment when I looked out the door and I saw that his team was actually standing in the wind, he was able to get off his sled, to walk up, to switch leaders out, and he didn't fall over, his dogs didn't fall over. That was the only time I thought, holy crap, it's actually good enough for me to go. Now the only thing I regret is I did somewhat dilly-dally when I decided I could go. But dilly-dallying is probably not even it. I walked out to my team and I had to get them all out of the pile, and then I decided to put dog booties on, which it was only 20 miles to the finish line, but my little head was going, God, I gotta protect them and make sure they're okay. So I left safety 22 minutes after he left safety. And I got to the finish line 2 minutes and 22 seconds after he got to the finish line.
Yeah, he took care of the team though.
Yes,